So there's one thing I want all of my subscribers and listeners here on social media to understand about my channel. Whenever I sit down to do stories like I'm about to do, or bring attention to something Donald Trump has said or done, I do not think that I'm necessarily going to get through to the hardcore MAGA cultist that's still hanging on for dear life to Donald Trump's coattail. I realize that they absolutely get off on his cruelty. I realize that they live vicariously through him, and he empowers them to be their true hateful self. So when I make these videos and I point to something that Trump has said or done next, it's not thinking that those people are going to suddenly see the light, but it is to keep reminding people of exactly who this man is and the level of disrespect that he has always shown to our veterans and to men and women in uniform in this country. I don't do it to win over his cultist. But somewhere at that cultist family dinner is some cousin or some brother or some sister sitting there quietly listening to their bullshit and going, I just can't buy into this stuff. And hopefully those are the people who stumbles across videos like this and goes, yeah, that's what I've really been sitting there thinking for a long time. And hopefully they pass it on over to the other quiet cousin at the dinner table and say, hey, there's people out here who really does see through, cousin Randy's bullshit over here. So that's who I'm going for when I sit down to make these kind of videos. I realize the cultist, the Kool-Aid has done took hold. But this next story couldn't get any more disgusting. I'm sure by now you guys have already saw this photo of Trump at Arlington Cemetery with his thumbs up. Well, this story is still developing. We're still learning about this as we go. But folks, it really doesn't get any more disgusting than this. This is the latest update from Jordy Mycelis from the Midas Touch Network. The U.S. Army releases a statement regarding the Trump campaign incident. The Army made clear that the incident did, in fact, occur. This morning, the United States Army released a statement regarding the recent incident at Arlington National Cemetery during a visit by former President Donald Trump, in which NPR reported that a Trump campaign official pushed aside a cemetery employee to take pictures in a restricted area. In a new statement from the United States Army, it made clear Arlington National Cemetery routinely hosts public wreath-laying ceremonies at the tomb of the unknown soldier for individuals and groups who submit requests in advance. Arlington National Cemetery conducts nearly 3,000 such public ceremonies a year without incident. Participants in the August 26th ceremony and the subsequent Section 60 visit were made aware of federal laws, Army regulations, and DoD policies, which clearly prohibit political activities on cemetery grounds. An ANC employee who attempted to ensure to these rules was abruptly pushed aside, consistent with the decorum expected at Arlington National Cemetery. This employee acted with professionalism and avoided further disruption. The incident was reported to the JBMHH Police Department, but the employee subsequently decided not to press charges. Therefore, the Army considers this matter closed. This incident was unfortunate, and it's also unfortunate that ANC employee and her professionalism has been unfairly attacked. ANC is a national shrine to the honored dead of the armed forces, and its dedicated staff will continue to ensure public ceremonies are conducted with the dignity and respect of a nation's fallen deserve. The statement is significant for several reasons. First, it confirms that the incident did in fact occur by noting that the ANC employee was abruptly pushed aside. Additionally, the statement confirms that there was a discussion about possibly pressing charges against the individual who pushed the ANC employee, but the charges were decided against. No reason was given for the declination. The statement goes on to highlight the unfortunate nature of the incident, given the fact that the ceremony was not supposed to be used for a political event. According to reporting from NPR and others, a Trump campaign official attempted to take photographs in Section 60, a restricted area of Arlington National Cemetery where only employees are allowed to take photographs and record video. When the employee tried to stop the Trump official, the employee was allegedly pushed aside by the official. Since this became public, the Trump campaign has been under significant fire for attempting to use the stop at the cemetery for campaign purposes. Today's statement will only increase the justified public scrutiny the campaign is experiencing. Folks, I honestly can't believe that we're reading this out loud and that this is happening. And I really can't believe that someone like J.D. Vance, even as low as he is out there trying to find a way to justify this. Can you imagine being Trump's running mate and you got to go to bat and always try to explain his actions? But here is JD attempting to explain this, and as he does, he just admits it all out loud. Take a look.
Well, I think, first of all, the altercation at Arlington Cemetery is the media creating a story where I really don't think that there is one. There is verifiable evidence. There is verifiable evidence that the campaign was allowed to have a photographer there. There's verifiable, they were invited to have a photographer there. There's verifiable evidence that the families of these poor people who had their loved ones die 3 years ago at Abbey Road, Abbey Gate, those 13 Americans, a lot of them were there with the president. They invited him to be there and to support them. That's not an insult to the memories of their loved ones. They wanted Donald Trump there, and thank God that we have a president who stands with our veterans instead of one who runs away from them.
So did you notice how right out of the gate he was like, yeah, the altercation that happened at Arlington Cemetery, yeah, there was an altercation. So thanks for admitting that, JD. But what I don't understand is how someone like JD Vance can go out there time and time again and keep trying to do damage control for Donald Trump. There had to have been some point. When I'm watching that clip, what my mind is telling me is that I see him sitting in a room going, okay, how are we going to spin this one? How are we going to do damage control for this one? How can we smooth this one over with our people? And it's not hard to smooth things over with MAGA at all. All you got to do is tell them that the liberals are being mean to Trump and they'll stay in line. But the rest of us sitting back watching that was truly disgusted by it. Regardless of the altercation or regardless of any other thing about it, just the picture alone is cringe. Just the picture of him standing there giving a thumbs up at a grave shows that he really has no respect for the hollow ground that it is. And while it may be true that he was invited, Chris Hayes from MSNBC makes a great point in this next clip. Yeah, he might have been invited, but there was a whole lot of other folks there who didn't invite him. Take a look.
It's true, Trump was invited. He was invited by some of those family members who Trump has been talking to, right? But this is a really important point. He was not invited by all the families of all the 400,000 veterans and dependents that are buried at Arlington, who did not and cannot consent to be used as props and a backdrop by a few other bereaved families for this individual. That's why the prohibition exists. It's a complete prohibition. It doesn't matter if he was invited. And beyond Vance disparaging someone who works at Arlington National Cemetery for enforcing the rules, is Donald Trump really a president who stands with our veterans instead of one who runs away from them? Really?
He's absolutely right. The soldiers buried there, they didn't invite Trump, and that's why that is put there in the first place, is out of respect for the fallen. And Donald Trump is the last president that has ever shown, or the last human being really, that's ever shown any respect to the military. Folks, I could sit back here and I could go down the list of receipts again, and we could talk about every insult that Donald Trump has thrown at veterans and our men and women in uniform. But he went to the most hallowed ground that there is for a photo op in the middle of an election. And the people out there that are giving this a pass are doing so because they love the fact that they have got a voice for their cruelty. That's all this is. We can bring the receipts all day long, and we should always bring the receipts, and we should always point out what kind of man he is for the people who are sitting back on the ropes, seeing through the BS they're having to hear at Sunday dinner. But this was an absolute slap in the face of everyone in Arlington Cemetery, to everyone that's ever served. And he did it on the campaign trail and made it political. And the reason he stood there with the thumbs up is because he's completely clueless as to the pain and suffering that happened to the men and women that are laying there. I really can't believe we're having to have this conversation. I really can't believe this man is still in the game. And to the people out there who used to tell me about their patriotism and how much they loved and respected veterans and how the Republicans was the party of the military and of the veterans, Those of you that have hung with Trump through all this and every receipt I brought you let roll off your shoulders, I want you to know, I don't think you ever loved this country for a second. I don't think you ever had 1 ounce of respect to anyone who served. Because if you did, this wouldn't be about political parties. If you did, you could set that aside. I can tell you that if someone on the Democratic side, independent, middle of the aisle, I don't care, went out there and did a thumbs up next to a grave, oh man, my grandpa would have knocked the hell out of me for that. I can't imagine what would have happened if I'd have went to a cemetery with my grandpa and done something like that. Because when I was growing up walking through a cemetery, my grandpa would always, don't step on that grave. Make sure you walk this way. Be very respectful. Be quiet. There's people here visiting their loved ones. Don't do anything ridiculous. And we got a grown 78-year-old waste of a human life, really, out there just disrespecting people like this with no shame whatsoever. We're not bringing these receipts because we think we're going to win over his cult. We're bringing these receipts to keep reminding people of what kind of man this is, and that man wants to be your leader of this free world again. That's why that this election means so much. That's why the stakes are so high. We can't allow this guy to continue to just make a mockery out of everything. If his cultist wants to give him a pass for it, let him. Let them just ride that train right into the ground if that's what they want to do. But reasonable people has to be the ones that steps up and saves this country. It's on us to do it, folks.